Single page applications have a problem caused by them sending just an empty shell of a HTML template that doesn't have any meaningful content in it at all. It's a white screen. Afterwards, they will load the application's JavaScript bundle, leaving the client with that white screen for a while it does all of that processing, because these JavaScript bundles can be very hefty as well. And that doesn't only leave client waiting for a while for their content to load, but it also has implications to SEO, which is what Google and Bing use to determine how highly the web page ranks. Server-side rendering, on the other hand, pre-renders part of the application on the server, so the initial response from the server to the client has much more meaningful content. And then a process called hydration takes place. So now that the page has its initial HTML and all that sort of nice CSS, it's looking like a decent page, although it isn't interactive yet. This is where hydration comes in. That will essentially load up those scripts, making the page fully interactive. Server-side rendering gives a better user experience to the client because they're seeing something quicker, it's loading up faster, and also SEO understands this better. Using this rendering strategy, your content is more likely to get to the top pages of Google and Bing than all those other search engines, DuckDuckGo. In two main ways you can use React server components, one of which is without a server. How on earth does that work? Using a React server component without a server. These run at build time. What that means is that you can read files from your file system and then you can render that content you read from your file system. It could be a markdown file if it was a blog application, for example, and you can do that all at build time. The other way you can use a React server component is with a server. You would have thought it. Say you have to fetch some user data. You have a component that says like a nice message like, "Hello user." Before you would have a separate API you would create a request to, that would then grab some data from a database with the given user ID, and then it would give that data back to the client component. That's fine, but it is time consuming because one, you're waiting for an API request, two, you're having to do re-renders of the page when you get the updated data. Now, however, with server components, you can have all that code in one place. You can fetch data from your database and your server component and just directly render that on the page without having to do an additional fetch, an additional re-render. There are some downsides to using server components, one of which being is that it adds some complexity to your application. Before, you would just take your bundled up HTML, CSS and JavaScript, the output of your npm run build or yarn build, whatever, you just plonk it on a static site hosting service, like GitHub Pages for example. And there's a whole bunch of them out there like Netlify, and you can use Vercel themselves as well. Or if you want more control over your hosting, you can even just dump them into an AWS S3 bucket. You can even host your static files on CDNs as well. You can use something like AWS's CloudFront, for example. And this is going to put your content very close to your end user, so there's going to be hardly any latency. You can just bite the bullet and host your site on Vercel, for example, and they will handle this server-side rendering complexity. But again, that's going to come at a bit of a cost. With that being said, you don't have to be hosting a runtime environment to get, benefits from server components. By building server components at build time and having that content already there available for your user, as long as that content and data isn't changing too often, it's not going to be a problem, and your users are still going to get a faster experience as a result. All in all, server components do add a bit of complexity to React, but they give us some great optimizations, and optimizations are fantastic. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.